So up next, we've got our producer of the show and founder of We Do Better, Dan Johnson. So Dan, how are you doing today? Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me on, Rick. And how am I doing? Well, I'm excited that we are officially on the inaugural show of We Do Better News. We've been working on this in the back end for what, like 2 months?
Yeah, something like that. It's been a while. We've been itching to get this out. So Dan, tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about We Do Better and kind of how how did you come into this and how did you come to starting You Do Better?
Well, sure. I won't spend too much time on it because we have 12-minute interview segments. But, I got off my couch and started getting involved in community action in 2012. There was a bill passed down that would seek to duplicate the power that the United States had that they used to detain 120,000 Japanese Americans in World War II. And a few thousand Germans and Italians as well, but it was one of the biggest civil rights disasters of the 1940s. And eventually paid reparations to those people, but the government still wanted the power. And then I went on to run an activist training center. From there, ran a tax reform group after that. And through like 6.5 years or so, I can't believe it's been that long, but through like 6.5 years of politics, what I realized was we needed to stop just talking about the problem. And both sides can fight over the problem, and I'm a pretty good fighter. I like fighting bullies, right? I like getting out there and taking a bully down. But what we noticed is that the real need in America right now was not fighting over problems and arguing about the problems and education on the problems, though that was important. It was education on the solutions. And so we started We Do Better, which is basically we the people doing a better job than the government. And it's been active now for a little over a year, but we've done some grassroots action, and this is probably our biggest launch yet.
Got it. So what are some of the things that We Do Better promotes that pushes the things you're talking about, solutions in particular? What do we promote?
Sure. So there's two main things that we do. We connect people with organizations, companies, and individuals that are delivering better outcomes than government programs. We have an examples page on the website. We have this news show, which will have dozens and dozens of examples that people can listen to and take out into the real world and start implementing in their communities. We also advocate to empower taxpayers to send a certain amount of their tax dollars to those organizations and be able to, if I think Cajun Navy does better than FEMA, I should be able to send my money there. We've gotten bills introduced in North Carolina, in Idaho, and in California to that effect. Jeff Lewis, our executive director, is heading that up. And really, we're a movement that's not only about informing people, but giving them the power to act on it. And so we take on both of those, and this news show is the highlight of the first one.
Awesome. And so how do those tax credits work? Like give us an example from North Carolina, for example. We've got a bill coming up. Tell us a little bit how would that work?
Sure, absolutely. So they're actually not a theory. They're fact. In Arizona, for the past 20 years, taxpayers have been able to send about 200 of their tax dollars to any organization that serves the poor. That worked so well that in 2016, 171,000 people sent 200 of their tax dollars to over 800 different organizations in Arizona, tackling everything from homelessness to drug addiction to poverty and everything related with that, to healthcare, to food insecurity, organizations that span the gamut of the different needs that we have in society, but all of them had in common, they delivered a better outcome than the government programs did. And at the end of 2016, Arizona politicians, much to their own chagrin, because politicians really don't care for this very much, but Arizona politicians doubled it from $200 to $400 per person. So we have yet to see the full results of that. But we took that model and we flew actually out to Arizona, myself, Ford Fisher, and we flew out. We interviewed people on both sides of the aisle. We interviewed nonprofits, interviewed the people they were helping, and really got a feel on the ground for how amazing this was. So we decided to write up the Universal Charitable Credit. We've written that up for most of the states in the country. We've got people who are active around the country who want to introduce it. And if somebody wants to introduce it, they can go to wedobetter.org. It's under resources. You can find legislation for your state there. But really, it's about first starting that conversation of, do politicians really spend money on human needs better than people? And do they do it all the time, like every single dollar? And if they don't, then why shouldn't people have the ability to send their money? If it's really truly about helping people and not about control, then why shouldn't people be able to send their money to whoever does the best job? We think that is the most kind of in America today. And that's something both sides of the aisle can get on board with. And we've seen that happen in various states. So we've got a bill active in North Carolina right now. And that would include volunteer fire departments, that people can send their money to a volunteer fire department to help them after the hurricane. So this is about empowering people. You know, if this bill passes in a state and everybody loves what the government's doing, nothing changes. Not a single dollar goes anywhere else. But if people are like, well, you know, I've got an organization that does a little bit better in my backyard, then they should have the ability to send the money to them. And that's what that's about.
Yeah, I really got that. And what's your favorite example? You mentioned the Cajun Navy briefly. What's another example, and how that organization did, and kind of what's the governmental comparison?
Well, I can't pick and choose, and you asked me to pick favorites of all the great organizations that we have on our examples page. I'll get angry letters and phone calls. No, but the organization, I'll pick out a couple. So one of them that really stands out is Generate Hope. They were an organization we worked directly with in California to introduce a charitable credit there. It was last year. And they're a anti-human trafficking recovery organization. They help a woman recover from the horrors of human trafficking. And it's a fairly expensive program for a woman to go through, and they've been able to show they lowered the PTSD levels of women who would come into their office were initially at the same levels as Vietnam veterans. And they were able to lower those PTSD levels down to normal levels and help these women be able to make their own way in society. They put the woman through about a 1-year program. It's $50,000 to put a woman through that program. However, the state of California would spend $75,000 jailing that woman, and they would jail that woman for years, and that woman would never get the help she needed, because a lot of women start in human trafficking and end up in prostitution. She would never get the help she needed to reintegrate into society and in fact become a benefactor, right, to society and to the people around her. And they do amazing work, and they were co-testifiers in California. And there's another organization also in California. I spent a lot of time out there. It's like my second home. But there's another organization that also in California that called Saved in America. And Saved in America is an organization of former law enforcement, Navy SEALs, and private investigators. And they have one mission: find missing children. Since 2014, they have found over 70 missing kids. They find them in an average of 9 days, and an average cost to the organization, family pays nothing, average cost to the organization of $7,000 per child. This is compared to the manhunts we hear about on the news, which are costing millions and millions of dollars, involving hundreds and hundreds of officers, and taking 2, 3, 4 weeks. In the case of a recent manhunt, I don't remember her name, but the girl just walked out of the house and somebody happened to come across her and find her. That police forces may not be as equipped to do manhunts as they are to write speeding tickets. But this organization is, and imagine how much more good we could do if we took the $1 million that would go into a police manhunt and gave it to that, and allowed people the choice to send it to that organization instead. and support that organization. And also, I guarantee most people who are listening to this show right now have never heard of Safe in America. They've never heard of Generate Hope. You don't know these organizations that might be in your backyard. And if you want to work with us toward real solutions in your community, it starts with knowing what they are. And that is really one of the huge things that this show is going to do. It's not just going to give you the arguments you need and give you the solutions you need to go into the debates and have a real discussion, but it's also going to give you the solutions you need so that you can get involved in changing lives and transforming lives, and creating cycles, virtuous cycles, with those people in your community. And that is what this show is not to oversell it too much, but what this show is designed to empower you to do.
Yeah. So you said earlier that it's, it was to the chagrin of the Arizona politicians that they doubled the credit. Now, between you and me, it's probably pretty obvious why they wouldn't want to do that. But for listeners, could you explain why you think it was so difficult for it to go through the political process?
So we sat down with a state senator, a Democratic state senator, who co-sponsored the bill to double the credit. I won't say his name, but if you want to know, he's on our YouTube channel and you'll find it. But this Democratic state senator did not support the legislation because he liked it. He co-sponsored the bill, and we went to interview him, right? And we think he co-sponsors it because he likes it. He doesn't co-sponsor it because he likes it. Co-sponsored it because of pressure. He called it a political decision. Pressure in his community. That's what that means. When somebody says a political decision, pressure in the community caused him to support the doubling of this credit. And when he was explaining why he was against it, he was like, well, and he was giving all kinds of caveats. He's like, well, usually, and some people don't trust us, and maybe we've kind of messed up, but like usually you want the state overseeing this type of thing. And I asked him, well, why? Why do you think that? Because politicians are surprised when you come in and say, I'm more concerned about women and children than you are. And now I have the moral high ground and you have to come back from that. So he wasn't quite used to that. And eventually, he had to come, you see the consternation on his face for a good 10, 15 seconds after I answered that question. And I asked that question. He's like, I just don't think people would follow their dollars to the organizations. And he called taxpayers stupid, essentially. And that's what it comes down to, is they believe, in many cases, that they can spend that money better than the people who elected them. And they cover it with the veneer of, we care about people. But when we put up this bill, we challenge them on it, right? Do you really care about people? And the amount of politicians that fail that challenge, who call themselves progressives or even Republicans, whatever, this isn't a partisan thing. The amount of politicians who fail that challenge is astronomical. So what we're kind of saying is, look, we need to put one of my favorite quotes. I think this is a Robin Kerner quote, but it is, we can have an ideological commitment to the method of providing for human needs, or we can have a moral commitment to the outcome. We're about a moral commitment to the outcome.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's really a challenge of the status quo, right? Is that what you found?
Yeah, absolutely. And organizations who, instead of working for the dollars, who've made cozy relationships with politicians to get grants, they are not as fond of us. But organizations that have earned it from their donors welcome this without a second thought. And we got 20 organizations in California signed on board in 2 weeks. So it is something that I want people to start thinking about, and we want people to start thinking about. It's something that will be brought to your state eventually. And it's the empowerment side, where this is the connecting and informational side.
Got it. And so for the people listening, what are some of the different, call it rungs on the political ladder that they could get involved in?
So if someone wants to get involved, my advice to you is, number one, share the show, right? We put 2 months of work into this show. As you can see, we've got like fancy titles and all that other stuff on the screen. We put some significant effort into this show. Share the show with your friends, share the show with your family, share the show with people who want to get involved but don't know how. We're going to do a lot of that, and we're going to give you little bits and pieces to take action. If you don't have a lot of time to take action, donate to this show, support the show on a recurring basis. That's what keeps this show going, is monthly donations at wedobetter.org. Support this show. We'll also give you little actions to take as this show carries forward. But if you want to get involved on the charitable credit side, download it. Go to the website, download the charitable credit. If you've got any questions, hit the contact us link. We'll get back to you. Really, this is not my movement. This is not yours, Rick. We took an idea that we think could work for everyone. We put in the work to make it viable, that people can take this idea and run with it. And it's up to you, our audience, to go out and actually do something with it. And we're here to help if you want, at wedobetter.org and on the We Do Better Facebook page, which I think is facebook.com/wedobetter. But search We Do Better on Facebook and you'll find us there too.
Fantastic. Is there anything else? We've got a minute left. Is there anything else you want to tell the audience?
It's amazing how slowly a 12-minute interview goes by. But I think that one of the things I want to tell the audience is, if I know a lot of you, and some of you may not know me, and welcome. I would love to meet you at some point. I've met so many of my online friends at this point. It's kind of ridiculous. But for those of you who have watched me and watched the evolution of kind of what I've done over the years, I want you to understand that this here, We Do Better, last year, I built it back from nothing, from less than nothing. That's how much of a struggle the organization had last year. And why did I build it back? And there was a couple of people who helped, but why did I build it back from less than nothing? Because I think that for the future of this country, for the future of the future generations, for the future of the direction and the flourishing, both of people's well-being and of their freedom in this country, it relies on this simple concept, not this organization, this concept that there are better solutions provided by people, individuals, and organizations than the government programs out there. If that concept wins the debate, we can win the future. If that concept loses the debate, we lose the future. It doesn't matter what else we do. So for those who've been watching me a while, thank you so much. Share this. Welcome to the movement. Welcome to the show. Drop your comments and concerns and questions. We will improve as time goes on. But to me, this is a information battle of sorts for our future, and for the homeless, for the people who need food, for people who are need to be saved from disasters. Every one of their lives, not to place too much weight on it, depends on this concept, winning that information battle. And so this is my lifelong journey. And thank you guys for hanging around with me and having Rick as our anchor. Listen to him and share the show.
Thanks so much for your hard work, Dan. We'll see you soon.